Good evening, friends. This is the first episode of Coast Observers Television, coming at you on Wednesday, February 4th, 2026, in Lompoc, California. My name is Karen Howenstein, and I am a resident and a citizen and an observer. Born in Lompoc in 1972, and I still live in my hometown, and I'm giving you this first show is going to be about my background and qualifications as an advocate and a community supporter. Reason being is because I've turned my advocacy and my community support into somewhat of a citizen journalist. And my friends here in the Lompoc Valley, I am very rooted in our home. Being a local, I'm very concerned about what goes on right here in the Lompoc Valley. And during my shows, I'm going to overlay the email address, which you see at the bottom of the screen here. And I want to encourage you to communicate with me, hopefully not anonymously. And let me know if there are things in our community that you'd like me to focus on for the show. And I will go out and investigate those things, find out the information, and bring it back right here to the show and report to the community. So I'm kind of excited about this being an interactive thing. So I want to give you guys, who doesn't know me already, because I am somewhat well known in the Lompoc Valley, and especially in our county, in Santa Barbara County, which is our home county. I spend a lot of time down in Santa Barbara speaking out publicly. My name is Karen Howenstein. I was born here in Lompoc in 1972, and I graduated from Lompoc High School in 1990. I was involved in basketball, golf, track, California Scholarship Federation, academic decathlon. In the summer of 1990, I was fortunate to travel to the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. In the summer of 1990, I spent 8 weeks there, traveling the country as a student ambassador for People to People, which is a U.S. government program. During the summer of 1990, I was one of 3,600 students from the U.S. who traveled to the USSR, but there were no students from the USSR who came to the U.S. at that time. I understand that after 1990, when the USSR was disbanded, that eventually students from the Soviet republics, which turned into their own separate country states, like Russia, did end up coming to the United States. But I didn't have any involvement in the program after the summer of 1990. When I returned from my world travel in 1990, I dedicated myself to volunteering and nonprofit management, where I worked for approximately 8 years as a financial services coordinator for the Lompoc Valley United Way. I was trained in nonprofit ethical standards, planning, accounting, and member agency services by Patricia L. Miller, who was our executive director for the Lompoc Valley United Way. For 8 years, I worked actually directly across the hall from where I'm at now in the studio which is an interesting adjunct. So during that time, I had contact with and training by many people who were operating on our board of directors for Lompoc Valley United Way, including Ray Williams and Jim Small, Jim Raggio from the Lompoc Hospital District. I had contact with people like Arlene Pelster, even our former mayor, Joyce Howerton. I became acquainted with her through my work for the Lompoc Valley United Way. So in all of that, after I worked at the United Way, my life took me in a different direction, and I got back into horse training. And I ended up training horses exclusively, and then wound up having horses of my own and forging out on a ride for a cause. In 2011, I rode a 3-horse pack string from northern Santa Barbara County to Hollywood to protest commercial horse slaughter, which is, the image behind me is a painting of the photograph that ran on the front page of the Los Angeles Times. I was fortunate to have an article written about my accomplishments in my life at that time by the reporter Nita Lelevold. Nita Lelevold is the city beat reporter, or was. I believe she moved across the country, but she was the city beat reporter for the Los Angeles Times at the time. And I got to know her quite well, and also the photographer Akasha Stevenson, who took the photo that ran on the front page of the Los Angeles Times February 14th, 2012, which is when I was on the front page protesting commercial horse slaughter. Now, a lot of people don't know what commercial horse slaughter is, but back around 2010, there was a faction of people in the United States who wanted us to start raising horses to slaughter for human consumption, to slaughter horses for meat. And when I heard about this as an industry, I was extremely intrigued, and I ended up learning the real biological reasons why we should never commercially slaughter animals, or especially horses, because they're just full of adrenaline. Horses are so smart. When they're in a slaughter environment, they're never calm. And one thing about commercial slaughter is the subjects always have to be calm in order to have good specimens for consumption. So it's really a bad idea. And so I rode my horses to Hollywood protesting this, and it was a very organic thing. I took off with hardly any budget, and I ended up getting a lot of organic support along the way, and I met a lot of really wonderful people and really had quite an experience. And if you're interested, you can look it up, as the article still exists online. But my experience in doing that, and my previous experience, which you can learn about if you look up the article, has placed me in a position where I am particularly effective at conducting investigations and revealing information publicly, speaking out in public, and being an orator. And that is why I'm sharing my time and my energy with you today on this show, is because I want the people of Lompoc to communicate with me and let me know what it is they want me to look at. And I'm going to pick the subjects and then start investigations and report on them through the show. So I want this to be an interactive thing. So, and I'm also going to give a short list of some of the things I've been following, and then also some of my mentors in my First Amendment auditing. So I started First Amendment auditing about a year ago, and I started a YouTube channel called Coast Audits on YouTube, which basically anybody who wants to become a citizen journalist or a First Amendment auditor can self-publish on YouTube. And I started doing that, and then basically becoming a cop watcher. So I became kind of a cop watcher, and then my investigations started getting so involved that I stopped putting them out publicly, but they were still getting consumed on Coast Audits. And so that's one of the reasons why this has developed into a television show that I hope will be interactive. And I'm hoping that people will give me productive feedback and not remain anonymous. Although, if you do want to pass along sensitive information and you want to remain anonymous, I will also respect that as a citizen journalist. So, because I'm all about getting to the truth and the meat of whatever issue or focus we want to have. So, let's see, how am I doing? I'm like halfway through already. I'm going to talk a little bit about people on YouTube who I have used as mentors. So, let me see here. You can't really read it very well because this is my first show. So, Susan Bassey. Susan Bassey is a court watcher, but she's also a court professional. And she has a YouTube channel called Susan Bassey. She focuses on law in the state of California, and she encourages laymen to learn more about the operations of our superior courts in California. And she's extremely effective at encouraging correct information about the way our court systems work, especially if families or children or individuals are having a hard time dealing with the court system. Susan has an incredible amount of experience, and if you go to Susan Bassey's YouTube channel, you can get a lot of information about the California courts. Then the people, Susan Bassey is also a First Amendment auditor. And all of these people below her, I consider them also First Amendment auditing, except, well, the Pinal County Sheriff's Office has a popular channel on YouTube, and Frank Slope is one of the most popular law enforcement officials that has a YouTube channel, in my opinion. But I consider all of this to be First Amendment auditing and promotion of our civil rights. And Long Island Audit is Sean over on the East Coast. He has had quite a bit of success because he used his YouTube channel to expose some corruption that was happening with his local law enforcement. Nick Shirley is a First Amendment auditor that I started watching over a year ago, and what he's done with his channel has effectively exposed corruption in our country involving federal dollars in the Minnesota debacle. There's a man named Chili DeCastro who has delete laws on YouTube. And Chili DeCastro is quite controversial because he pushes the First Amendment to its limit. He often, when he is triggered by law enforcement for whatever reason, he will verbally attack them to the limits of the First Amendment. And he is a self-proclaimed constitutional scholar, and a lot of times his behavior is offensive. But I consider Chili DeCastro one of the premier First Amendment auditors for our country because of the limits he is able to establish with his body of work. My friend Katie Kidman here is local. She is from the Central Coast of California, and she resides here in the Central Coast. And she's actually a friend of mine who has been a mentor to me in my First Amendment auditing activities that I've taken up with Coast Audits. And let's see. Oh, another one that I lost my timer, guys. The Sheep Show on YouTube. I have followed his work. Then another local guy who is often in Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo County is on YouTube, Nasty Nathaniel on YouTube. He has been a First Amendment auditor for over 10 years, and he has grown his channel on YouTube quite a bit. So those are the people that I have used as my mentors in my own First Amendment activity that I've actually really enjoyed learning to interact correctly with law enforcement. So another thing I'm going to reveal to my audience is the reasons behind why I have chosen to work as a First Amendment auditor. Organized crime attacked my family's title to their home. And back in 2019, a man stole our family home with non-judicial foreclosure fraud. And when we discovered what had happened, we didn't know what to do, and we didn't have any money to combat this in an equitable fashion. So it turned out that there was a lot of corruption that was revealed by what happened to my family and their home. And I started investigating the corruption, and it's led me to where I am today, which is with quite a bit of information about a lot of things in our county. I've been speaking out regularly at our county board of supervisors meetings and our city council meetings. If you guys are catching me on TAP TV, you've probably seen me already at the city council meetings speaking out about my opinions and my views. So I have to say that the way that I've dealt with and I'm going to admit something here. I know a lot of people deal with the same thing when they have any kind of trouble with the implementation of our laws and the participation of law enforcement in protecting their rights. If you've had a negative experience, sometimes you can deal with rage. And I started dealing with my rage when I was pulled over by a California Highway Patrol officer on Highway 246. And this was before I knew about my penchant or attraction to ginger cops. And I just let him have it, like the Karens on the YouTube screaming at the cops. And since then, I have developed better personal skills so that I can control myself around law enforcement. And it's taken years, but I have to say that I am particularly thankful to all of the law enforcement officers that have not harmed me in any kind of real or permanent way, or to my reputation, which has been done, actually. I don't know if I want to mention, well, anybody can look it up. I'm fully transparent. I've already been investigated completely by probably every investigative agency someone could complain to. And I have to say that when people go onto the Santa Barbara County Superior Court website, they're going to find a lot of information on little stuff that I've been focused on by law enforcement. And if you go on the Superior Court website, it looks like I am a really bad criminal. But if you dig underneath the cases and into the details, you'll see that a lot of it is, frankly, stuff that's hard to believe. So I only have about 5 minutes left. So I want to go over my memorial for this first show. I want to recognize 2 Lompoc Valley residents. The first is a friend of mine that we lost last year, and it's coming up on the anniversary of us losing one of my friends, Joseph Medina, who had the Bidia Boys food truck. And I just want to mention him because he and his family were great friends, are still great friends of ours, and his spirit, I still feel like it's here in our community, even though I desperately miss his food, his signature birria. With the cinnamon, anyway, I remember Joseph Medina for the work that he did in accomplishing his food truck and feeding our community. And I know that a lot of people that I'm speaking to on this show are going to remember him fondly. Okay, and then thank you. I'm winding it down. And then the last person I want to recognize today is a resident who, unfortunately, we're remembering her because she died in custody inside the Lompoc Police Department. And there's very little information that has been provided about Liliana Cecilia Zuniga's death. She came into custody at the Lompoc Police Department on the 9th of March in 2023. And nearly 4 days later, she was found dead in her holding cell. And I have gotten to know her mother, and I happen to know that the information that's been provided about her death has not been complete. And here we're coming up on 3 years, and the investigations have not been completed or made public. So that is one of the things I started investigating. If anybody has any information about Liliana Zuniga and wants to communicate with me, just go to coastabservers@gmail.com, and maybe we can come together to honor the memory of another Lompoc local. So that's what we are, Lompoc locals. Los locales de Lompoc. Okay. Well, thank you very much. This has been 30 minutes of me talking about what's hot in Lompoc. And I appreciate you. And God bless our valley. Thank you for joining me. All right.